Hello, everyone. Good morning. So my name's Sukie Kang, and welcome to this workshop. Can you hear me okay? That's the first question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. So just to advise, we're not going to actually do a full participatory budgeting in this workshop because we need a minimum of around 16 people, and it's not going to work if we have people dropping in, dropping out. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give an overview of what participatory budgeting is, talk through the process, how to facilitate such an event, and then I'm going to take questions, and then I'm going to turn this into an Ask Me Anything in terms of lean budgeting and agile budgeting. So I hope that's okay. And we will start then. So participatory budgeting is something which, in fact, just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay, so like I say, this is not going to be a full participatory budgeting workshop, but more of an overview of what it is. So let's go. So the reason why we do participatory budgeting is because most organizations, the rate of new ideas is always higher than the capacity of the organization to deliver. So we need to have a mechanism for determining what is it that we should fund. And traditionally, this has been done in a very, not in an economic way. We might have somebody senior making decisions about what to fund. And what we want to do is we really want to get that alignment. We want to get that consensus across organizations in terms of what we should fund. Because every organization has a limited capacity in terms of what it can deliver over a period of time. And we just for you online, we're just trying to make sure that the video from my laptop is coming out on the screen, and we've just got a few issues there, which is why I'm looking over there right now. Yeah, I'm on the Zoom call, if that helps. Okay, so just give us 30 seconds because I'm about to get a cable plugged into my laptop to help with the attendees who are here. Those of you online, just, yeah, give me 30 seconds and we'll start again. Thank you. Yeah, cool. Audio, let's just see if the audio is working. No. Okay, audio is working. All right. So, okay. So the reason why we have participatory budgeting, as I say, we need to have alignment on what we're going to fund. And it's an event that we have as part of lean portfolio management, where a number of different stakeholders will come together to determine what the budget should be for the different value streams in your organization. Okay, so let's just move this out of the way. All right. So what are the inputs into participatory budgeting? The first thing I will point out is the teams, and hopefully you all understand what we mean by value streams. Value streams are the sequence of steps that an organization takes to deliver value to its customers. Most organizations have more than one value stream. For example, you might be selling, if you're an electronics company, you might be selling different products, and each of those products might be a value stream, which is what BMW do. Or you might have different focuses. For example, if you're a bank, a common setup is, you have a value stream for consumer lending, and you have another one for mortgage lending. You have a different value stream for a different activity. And we have all of the people who are involved in that, all of the people involved in taking customer demand and delivering on that demand who are part of that value stream. So this is a value stream network in front of the functional silos, in front of the functional structure. So here we have the current value stream budgets. That's an input into the participatory budgeting forum. We also have the business context as well. So what's happening in terms of the macro environment, in terms of, for example, right now the business context would be one of COVID. And the key, one of the key inputs is the potential epics that are going to be coming in. And when we say portfolio epics, we mean epics which cut across different value streams. And we have the estimates, and then we might have specific epics for each value stream as well. And then finally, we have the budget itself. What is the actual budget that the organization is putting forward as a total spend, and how are we going to split that up? So all of these inputs come into the participatory budgeting forum, and then out of this event, we end up with the different budgets for each value stream. So if we have, for example, 4 value streams, we might determine out of the total spend, some of the money, one way is obviously 25% for each value stream, but business sense might mean that doesn't make sense. So maybe one value stream gets 10%, another one gets 20%, another one gets 50%, and then the other one gets 20% of the money. And that's really based on which epics are we looking to fund. So this slide is really like the language we used to use was run the business and grow the business. And I know we're kind of moving away from that language a little bit, but this is effectively what that is. We have some money which is core spend in terms of the people, in terms of keeping the lights on, and then we have the additional investments that we want to make to effectively grow the business or to get new capability. And we need to, collectively, this is the total budget. So why do we do participatory budgeting? So it really is around that, getting that multiple perspectives from different people. A lot of businesses are still have their individual business units, their individual departments, and quite often what they do is one department says, well, my projects are more important than that department's projects, and we get a lot of political infighting from different parts of the business. Instead, we want to reach that alignment, so the entire organization is aligned in terms of its direction, rather than having these competing kind of business units who are effectively fighting for resource. So we get that alignment, and we get that consensus. And the other thing it does do is it says that it improves morale. The engagement, and this has been studied in many organizations that do this. Everyone seems to be much more happy about those funding decisions because they were part of the conversation. And you might not get everything that you want, but you do get some of what you want. But remember, we're meant to be, and what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to establish is everybody working towards the company's priorities according to delivering on the strategic themes that the organization has. So I'm going to play a quick video And this video is from just an overview of participatory budgeting in a different organization. So I'm just going to stop the share and share the video for people online. So remember, after this short presentation, I will be taking questions on this as well. So, okay, so I'll play this video. So only about two or 3 minutes long.
We have to make really tough decisions when we're allocating funds or cutting services sometimes. And knowing what the community thinks is important, what the community's priorities are, is just critical to making good decisions.
This particular approach of using Continuo and really creative game type environment has been part of our process for the last 4 years, and it's been an invaluable way for the City Council to get input from the community.
In the background, you can hear the buzz and the excitement and the engagement that happens when we come together to solve these kinds of problems.
I found to be a very good exercise in learning exactly how the city functions, where the money comes from, and from what sources and who needs the money and how much they need.
We have $68 million to spend.
$68 million doesn't even touch the police budget. It doesn't even help.
Not very much. The issues don't necessarily only affect adults because we use things like the community centers and the parks and the libraries.
It is a viable way for the community to come together to really set priorities.
It's more than increased availability of recreation and programming. It's safety. It's safety. It's a safe house for the youth in our area. That's what it's all about.
This room was full of people who have opinions and they're not afraid to express them.
It was a great experience. It got a little tense at times. But we all came together, everybody at our table.
And how much do we have left in our allotment?
Somebody needs to cough up 10 million if you want it.
There's another $1 million. Another $1 million for road maintenance.
That's another thing I like about this process, especially the online piece of it, is all you have to be is a resident of this city to be participative.
You're explaining to other people why it's important to you.
Silicon Valley innovation is more than just chips and software. It's this process itself.
It was really good because we were allowed to discuss, and I really saw the viewpoints of their issues and their priorities, and they saw my priorities, and I think we came to a really good decision at the end.
It's very helpful to us to know that what we're doing reflects the values and priorities of the community.
The feedback you give us will be part of the decision-making process that the council will use in adopting our budget this year.
Okay, so I'll come back to the other screen share. So what you saw there was obviously from a public sector organization, from a city, San Jose in California. Oh, all right, a second. It might help if I turn that off. Good old YouTube. Yeah, that was from a public sector organization. This has actually been implemented in South America as well. But this is increasingly being used in private organizations as well, in corporations. And it's the same principle. We're bringing together stakeholders from different parts of the business, and they are collectively agreeing on what they want to fund in order to ensure that we have that alignment. Because just to repeat again, every organization I've worked in has a limited capacity in terms of what it can actually deliver. Therefore, it's crucial that we reach alignment on what it is that we want to send through to engineering, to product and engineering for execution. So this is, so by the way, the deck I'm using is from Scaled Agile, but the process is exactly the same. And what we see here is that in an organization, We would typically do participatory budgeting maybe twice a year. That seems to be most common. And this participatory budgeting exercise then informs what lean portfolio management decide, in terms of what it approves in terms of epics, and then eventually those epics go into the big room planning, into PI planning for execution by the teams themselves. Okay, so in terms of running an event, and this is what I would have done if we had, a lot more people, available. What we have to do is the 4 steps here. First one is preparing the content, and I'm going to go through each of these steps. But the content is, what are those epics? What are those epics that we're looking to take into the event, and what are the cost estimates for those epics as well? We also need to understand the baseline costs. So what is the kind of the run the business costs for each value stream as well. And then we get all the people together who we need for that event. And then we actually run the actual forum itself as well. And finally, we analyze those results. So first thing, we need to prepare the content. So for each epic, we have a lean business case. So if you're familiar with the lean business case, it's a 2-page document, and the template is freely available. And the reason why we create a lean business case for each epic is because an epic is a big initiative. Yeah, an epic is a big commitment. So certainly in the scaled agile world, what we call an epic is something that will take more than a planning increment to deliver. So more than 10 weeks or more than 12 weeks to deliver in it. Therefore, it's a big commitment. You're taking up capacity from up to 100, 120 people for over 10 or 12 weeks just for a single epic. Therefore, we need to have the additional governance, and that's what we mean by the lean business case. So each epic will have a lean business case, and the participants will review those and familiarize themselves with every epic prior to the event. And we also have a business context briefing. So those enterprise executives, or those what we call business owners, the stakeholders, would have would set out the context in terms of, this is the state of the business, this is the state of the macroeconomic environment, and as a result of that business context, that will lead to what we call strategic theme. These are the strategy of the organization. That we're looking to implement that strategy through the epics. So for example, if you are running a participatory budgeting event in April of this year, the business context would be all about COVID. And maybe, as you see there in example 2, the business context might be, well, as a result of COVID, our revenues are down. Therefore, the budget has now been cut by 20% or whatever the figure is. And as a result of that budget cut, what are those investments that we're now going to be making in adherence to that cut of budget? Once we've had the business context, we then ensure we got the right people in the room. And we need people who are part of the lean portfolio management function, or who form part of lean portfolio management. Business owners, which is a scaled agile term, essentially that's the stakeholders, key stakeholders in the business. Epic owners, and these are people who are essentially stewarding that epic through the Kanban and just give the epic some oversight. It's not a formal role, it's just a hat that people wear. Product management, solution management, enterprise architects, possibly system or solution architects, and any other key stakeholders. So we've got quite a wide range of people who are taking part in this event, because the goal is that we need to have that alignment across different parts of the business. If you've got in your company 10 different business units, you would have representation from each of those business units in this event. Yeah, because this is the total budget that we are looking to spend as an organization, and where will that money be allocated? And then the way the event works, a bit like that video, we have different groups of people. So in this example, we've got 40 people from different parts of the company, and we're organizing those 40 people into 5 8-person groups. And we want to ensure that we've got a mix of roles in each group. Yeah, so we have people who are from a good kind of cross-functional representation on each table. We don't want one table with everybody from marketing and another table with everybody from sales. That's not going to work. We need to really split those groups up and have good representation, including technical people as well. And some tips here. So, it's helpful if someone in each group understands most of the epics. It's really helpful if everybody has had a chance to review the epics prior to the event as well. And we need to have those different perspectives as well, which is why we want to ensure each table is, has cross representation. And the decisions that they make in terms of what to fund, that's their proposal. The final decision still rests with LPM. So we've divided each group into, so we've divided the entire group into the different tables. And then what we're doing is we're saying, okay, the total budget from the organization is, in this example, 28 million. Therefore, each table is going to be given 28 million, and that could be paper money, it could be, whatever form you take. And each person effectively gets a share of that budget. So each person in this example is getting 3.5 million. And then each table is then trying to, they're having that conversation about, what they're going to fund. One person might say, well, I want to put my 3.5 million here. Another person might say, well, actually, I'm going to put 1 million towards this epic and 2 million towards this epic. And we try and have that conversation is really important, and trying to reach consensus on what we're going to fund, even though every table is going to come up with their own different ideas. So each group collaboratively funds the investments. And if a particular epic is not funded or only partially funded, those are candidates for potential termination, as in we're not going to fund those epics because not enough people actually agreed on those epics. Might be subject to negotiation as well. Okay, so this is the analysis of the results, and what's happened here on the right-hand side, every table independently decided that these epics here, and the reason why this is grayed out is because it's from a German company which did this, I think last year, and obviously for privacy, that's been hidden. But each table independently said these are the epics that we want to fund, and then out of those 8 tables, 7 of the tables decided to fund these epics that we see here. And this one also had quite a high alignment in terms of what to fund. And then we get to the next lot of epics, where only maybe about 50% of the tables decided independently to fund these. And you can see here, fully funded, well, half the tables, partially funded. So some of these we may choose to do, because there does seem to be some strong support for those. Not universal support like these, but a good amount of support there. And then these are the epics which very few people, very few tables actually agreed to fund. And this one's quite an interesting one, because fully funded, only one table decided to fully fund it, but all the other tables partially funded it. So this one is going to actually be a subject of a conversation about whether we fund it or not. But there we can see how we've reached alignment across the different business units in the company, particularly on these, and that's the decision of the Participatory Budgeting Forum, and that's the proposal that goes to LPM. Okay. All right, so as a result of that forum that we've just had, The results are discussed by representatives of each value stream and lean portfolio management. We need to ensure that any investment is aligned with any budget guardrails. So when we say budget guardrails, there are a number of guardrails that we use. One of them is, we need to ensure that some of the investment, some of the money is going towards core business, and a percentage of the investment is going towards innovative activity, for example. And we need to ensure that the investments are aligned with those different, pots of money or different sections. And once we've done that, we then use weighted shortest job first, or cost of delay, in order to determine what's the sequence of those epics. So we know we've got a bunch of epics that we want to fund, but what order should we work on those? And then we use cost of delay to determine that. Okay, and then here you see on the right-hand side in the picture, the value stream budgets themselves are now being adjusted according to the output of the forum. Okay, so we need to also ensure that the value streams themselves are reorganized to align. So if we're saying we're moving, we're reducing the amount of money in value stream 1, and we're maybe putting more money into value stream 2 because of the types of epics that we've agreed to fund. What does that mean in practice? It means that teams from value stream 1 are now going to move to value stream 2. Yeah, and that means that there might need to be a HR focus there. Functional managers might need to play a role in that as well. So, a quick silly example, if one of our value streams is making Blu-ray players, and another value stream is we make DVD players, and another one is TVs, well, actually, we know that from the data we've got, our customers aren't buying DVDs anymore. So we're going to reduce the value stream, reduce the budget on that value stream, and we're going to put more money into the Blu-ray value stream. That means teams who used to work on the DVDs are now moving to the Blu-ray value stream instead. So we're just essentially moving teams from one value stream to another. And here's a typical agenda that takes place that we use for participatory budgeting. We start off with the business context. Then we have a good hour to really ensure everyone is up to date with the epics. What's the epic about? What's the outcome hypothesis? So everyone's fully briefed. And then we have the participatory budgeting process itself. And that continues, and like any event in Agile, we always finish off with a retrospective, because we want to make sure that it continues to get better and better going forward. So PB normally happens twice a year, but in response to big events like COVID, you may choose to do an ad hoc PB as well. So this is much more flexible than the annual budgets that organizations typically use. So that's what I have for the slides. As I said, given the numbers we have, I couldn't run a participatory budgeting forum live, and I don't think it would really work very well online and in-person hybrid. So that's why I've given you an overview of the process itself. And I am going to now ask if you have questions on what I have just covered off. And yeah, so there you go. Any questions from those of you in the room or those of you online? Okay. Yeah.
I didn't attend all workshops, but the budgeting is something that is really important to me, because we usually in the organization discuss the budget for the next fiscal year, and it's more bottom up. our customers what they need to improve their work, what kind of projects they need to improve, and the why. And then we attribute the budget to the project. And then we organize the projects within a work stream. So we have a value stream of projects that normally are connected somehow. But we have a strict budget for the whole fiscal year. And what happens is that we iterate, and we found that at some point we don't need the whole budget, but the budget is stick to that project. We don't distribute to other projects that normally needed, because the world is changing, the customers are changing, the technology, it was what not supposed. So what is the constraint that you with your experience in these organizing teams and in these organizations, what is the advice that you give to the management to have some kind of different mindset to look into the budget in this way rather than the conservative budget?
So I'm going to be quite bold and brutal here, and I'm going to say the advice I would give is you need to stop thinking about projects. Yeah, projects as a construct for delivering value in this century, it doesn't make sense anymore. Yeah, and hopefully those of you online can see this, but like I think we have scope or requirements, and then we have cost and we have time. Yeah, with a project, what we're doing is we're saying here's a fixed scope. Here's a fixed scope, and here's our budget, and this is how long we think it's going to take. And like I said yesterday on my talk, the problem with this approach, firstly, is what about feedback? When we start to get feedback, well, that's going to change. That's going to change. Potentially, that's going to change. And in most organizations, that means a project change request. There's a lot of overhead, a lot of bureaucracy in that. So this does not work if you're still thinking in terms of projects. Instead, in Agile, what we promote is continuous value delivery. Yeah, that means this notion of project, it's not compatible with that. Yeah, so that's the advice I would give. Stop trying to think of everything as a project, because instead what we've got is, think of the value streams, and those of you online, hopefully you can see this. So let's just say value stream one. Value stream one is centered on a particular product. Let's just say, I don't know, the product is a particular device that we sell to our customers. And this value stream is made up of teams, agile teams. So we just say there's, six agile teams who are made up of this value stream, who make up this value stream. And when that demand comes in, so I'm doing a disservice to my colleague Stuart Young, who can draw, I can't draw. So that demand is coming in to that value stream. And that demand, obviously, we have it in a backlog, and we prioritize that backlog, obviously, according to cost of delay and other factors. But as that demand enters the value stream, these teams are working on those epics or those features, and eventually we're delivering that to the customer. And because in this value stream approach, we don't need to think about projects in that sense anymore, because when your customer is saying we want this, that, or the other, depending on its size, if it's over, let's say 10 weeks or 12 weeks, or let's say 6 months, according to our estimates, that's an epic. Yeah, that epic is going to go into our backlog, and it's going to be prioritized with other epics, and eventually through the planning process, that epic, the pieces of work that make up the epic are going to come to these teams, and these teams are going to work their way through it and then eventually deliver that to the customer. So we actually don't need to think of it as a project anymore, because once again, if you think of Agile actually turns this on its head. This is the classic waterfall. Agile is this, where we And that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Fixed, and then variable. Yeah, so fixed and variable. So in waterfall, in the project mentality, scope is fixed, cost and time are variable. But in Agile, we turn that on its head. So, in Agile, cost and time are fixed. Scope is variable. It's just a fundamentally different approach. And when we say cost and time are fixed, all of these teams that make up the value stream, we have like a fixed cost for that. This is a capacity-based model. And we know that this value stream, all the teams who make up this team of teams deliver X amount of story points over a period of time. Yeah. And if we say that this team of teams is delivering 1,000 story points per planning increment, then the focus becomes, okay, we know they can only deliver around 1,000 story points. Which 1,000 story points from the backlog are we going to push into these teams? That's what we mean by cost and time are fixed. And what they work on, that's variable. So, yeah, as I said in my talk yesterday, Agile, the notion of an Agile project, in my view, is actually an oxymoron. Yeah, these are different constructs in play. Okay. Any questions from those of you online? Yeah. Yeah.
When creating Epic, you sustain directly to the value stream, or it's always before the value stream, before the attached to the value stream.
So if you have multiple value streams, let's say you've got 4 value streams and there's an epic, is it associated with a particular value stream? So let's see if I can use this. Okay, just do this. Bum, 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 bum. So we have 2 different definitions, really. So let's say we've got value stream 1, value stream 2, value stream 3, and then value stream 4. And we have an epic. Here's our epic. If so, an epic is made up of lots of what we call features, and then each feature is broken down to stories, right? So that's basically a model that we tend to use. And if that epic, if those features are going across different value streams, then we just call that a portfolio epic. Yeah, a portfolio epic, meaning that maybe 2 of the features are going to come into here, 1 of the features is going to come into here, and then that's really down to skill set and knowledge. Yeah. For example, the teams in value stream 4, they have access to a particular system. Let's just say they have access to the mainframe. Yeah. And some of the work is mainframe work. So obviously that particular piece of work is going to come into the value stream 4. If an epic can be delivered by a value stream in its entirety, then it just comes straight into whichever one. Yeah, so it really depends on the type of work that's within that initial epic. Yeah, it's either a portfolio epic or it just comes straight into a particular value stream.
Only after that you put the epic or the user story feature on the value stream.
Yeah, so if we've got lots of epics, so we've got lots of epics here, all of these epics are going to go into the participatory budgeting process. And that's where we decide which ones to fund. And maybe we've decided to fund this one, and this one, and this one. We'll just say the others didn't get funded. Those epics that we're deciding to fund those epics will then go off to the various value streams that they're going to. So let's just say there's a backlog here, there's a portfolio backlog there, there's a backlog there. And now we've decided which epics we're actually going to fund. We still have to do prioritization, because if value stream 1 has 20 epics, well, clearly we can't work on all 20 at the same time. Yeah. Therefore, we need to have a prioritization mechanism. So we still use cost of delay. At this point, we say if we use weighted shortest job first, which takes cost of delay and looks at the size. That's where we then determine, okay, out of all these epics, which we've agreed that we're going to fund, which order should we do them in? And one other thing is, we don't necessarily work on an epic in its entirety. We might work, in fact, what we typically do is we take the lean startup approach. So when we say we're going to fund an epic, initially we're funding the MVP from the epic. And then we use the data from that MVP to tell us whether it's worthwhile for us to continue working on that epic or not. So if you think an epic contains multiple features, first we fund the MVP. If the data is good, if the feedback's good, then we might choose to do a few more features from that epic. But we might also be working on some features from a different epic. Yeah. So we won't just say epic 1, we're going to do all of the epics in entirety and then move to the next epic. We'll just do the highest value items from one epic, and we'll also have some high value items from another epic as well. And we work on those, and then we might come back to that first epic in the next time period and say, okay, let's do some more of the, like the should have, sort of nice to haves, if that makes economic sense to do so. Yeah.
And the features have some cost. You transfer the cost to the value stream because the budget account. How you manage it?
So this each value stream will have. So if I come back to the participatory budgeting example, as a result of that forum, what we're doing now is we're saying. So this is like my pie chart of, okay, value stream 1 has, whatever 20. So as a result of the epics we're going to fund, we determine where those epics sit, and then that's where we're allocating the budget. So this one might have 20% of the budget. This one might be 30% of the budget, and so on and so forth. And that's the. We do the participatory budgeting. As a result of that, we now know what the budget should be for each value stream based on the epics we've decided to fund. And now we've got that budget, then we go into the sequencing of those epics. In which order should we do that work?
Can I ask something regarding the process budgeting? So when are those epics presented as a business case, like the whole project weight? Because a lot of organizations want to know, okay, I'm going to deliver this value, but I want to know if I will have revenue or savings, because I need to, after these, I need to present this kind of KPIs for my management. So I need to have this business case. Do you present as a business case in these forums, or do you have an innovative way to present the business case of the
Yeah, so each, I think it might have been one of the slides just before you joined.
No,
that's fine. No, it's fine. It's good to recap. So each epic has a 2-page lean business case accompanying the epic, which talks about things like, what's in scope, what's out of scope, what is the estimated cost for the epic, but also what is the estimated cost for the MVP, because every epic has to have an MVP. And even though here we're talking about, we're making decisions about what to fund, in practice, we're only going to work on the MVP first, because we still want to get the data from that. So yes, there is a lean business case that accompanies every epic, because an epic is a large commitment. Therefore, we need to have a bit more governance over that. And if you're coming from a pure Scrum world, then. And this is one area where, in the scaling frameworks and Scrum, there is a slightly different definition of epic. In Scrum, effectively, an epic is just a very large story. But we're being a bit more granular, a bit more specific by what we mean. And we're saying an epic is something which is bigger than your planning period. So if your planning period is 10 weeks, an epic is by definition greater than 10 weeks in size. So because of that commitment, because you're going to be tying up a lot of resources working on that, we want to make sure there's additional governance there, which is why we have a 2-page lean business case. Yeah, these are all free templates you can just download.
How do you make the relation between the software management and the
How do the relationship between the LPM and OKRs? So OKRs, where I've seen them used quite well, is every organization. In fact, this is going to be that's a great question. Okay. If you think of the overall enterprise up here, this is our overall organization. The enterprise will have, will formulate strategy, and that strategy, we express it in the form of what we call strategic themes. Strategic themes. And, you know, I'm using scaled agile notation, but it doesn't matter. All organizations will do something like this. So they have all their different strategic themes. So they might have, for example, 5 strategic themes, and that is the strategy of the organization, express that strategic themes. And for each of these strategic themes, there's going to eventually be a bunch of epics that we identify, which are going to help deliver that strategy, okay? But each of these strategic themes, we can express as OKRs. So the objective is, for example, if you're in retail, we want to increase sales with younger people by 20%. That's a strategic theme. That's the objective. The KR bit, the key results, is the measurement, the quantitative measurement of how do we know objectively if we're meeting that strategic theme. So I do see OKRs being used as a way of expressing strategic themes. This is our objective, but these are the key results which tell us if we're meeting it. Strategic themes is not based on value stream, it's based on just what the strategy is of the organization. Yeah. So maybe if you're a company that has lots of, you create software which is on-premise software, maybe your strategic theme is, we are going to move all of our software to the cloud. That's the objective. How do we measure the key results against that? Yeah, epics are the delivery vehicle to implement your strategy. Now, that works for specific types of organizations. If you're a different organization where you've got, you know, customers who are kind of giving you demand, then clearly some of your strategic themes are going to be internal to the enterprise, but other epics you work on are going to be things that come from your customers. So what those teams of teams work on, some of what they work on is implementing the company strategy. Some of what they work on is the demand coming from the customer base. So it's hard to give a one-size-fits-all answer because every organization is different. You know, like one of the organizations I work with at the moment, almost like, I'd say almost 80% of their work is just from customers. And sometimes they almost have no capacity to work on their own development, you know, so they need to balance. There's a bit of a trade-off there.
People who are in the meetings are aware of the strategic themes, the OKRs defined.
Yeah, so the strategic themes is a really powerful tool, because when you are determining, you know, which epics should we potentially be funding, well, this epic, which strategic theme does that relate to? Well, actually, that relates to maybe this one, and this one actually relates to this one. What about this one? Oh, it doesn't relate to any of the strategic themes. Okay, so why are we going to work on it if it's not part of our company strategy? So we do have epics as a delivery vehicle for the strategic themes, and yeah, that's you know, there's a lot of work that takes place between how do we deliver on that strategy, what do those epics look like in order to meet our strategy, and then we use OKRs to assess our progress against those strategic themes. Any questions from those online? I take silence as a good thing. Okay. So let's just go to this is more for Claudia's benefit here. Yeah, so this is the one I was going to say. This one here, creates a lean business case for each epic. Yeah. And then the process is that.
Yeah, what happened in the traditional organizations is like that. We thought, okay, we have a bunch of people working in a big program, and we want, and they don't define really the strategic way of the program, but we need to feed down with what other customers feedback give to us. So they put that in projects, and then they say they are agile because the team just uses a Kanban or whatever.
Yeah,
and yeah, I like agile-ish. But then it's conservative all over the way because you present, okay, I want, you give the highlight scope. You don't give really the way how you're going to deliver, but you said, I have these resources in place right now. So my budget is estimated with my workforce, what they will consuming, and licenses and all the work over a year, not related with features and the value that we want to deliver to the client. So that's why you are not allowed sometimes to do MVP, right? Because it seems like that you are funding an innovation. It's not an innovation, it's a product. So it's a product you need to constantly be working on that, but it's not called a product, it's a project. So it's a mindset. It's the way that we need to turn over that. And by the initial business case, you need to deliver what will be the benefit and the return of the investment for the company. We need to commit that we really want this product to deliver to our customers, and the savings or the revenue will be like X amount, X% of the internal investment.
The thing is, if you're not funding MVPs, or indeed if you're not taking an MVP approach, you're kind of just baking in all these assumptions, and you're saying the ROI is going to be this, right? Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And then you'll be chasing the project leader and the project manager to be compliant with the commitment in the first place, right? So they are not putting the view of the world that we're giving.
Absolutely.
Over there. So
Yeah. I mean, I think it's absolutely fine to deliver projects and to have traditional budgeting if you are a fortune teller. Then it's fine. If you're not a fortune teller, it's probably not the most sensible approach, because before you know it, you've launched you spent €2 million on a music store, and you're like, hey, we got a new music store. Oh, everyone's using Spotify. Oh, there's €2 million we just wasted. Yeah. And the other thing with the projects as well is, I mentioned about feedback. How can you really respond to feedback effectively if you're running projects with a fixed scope and a fixed cost? You can't. You pay lip service to feedback. The other thing as well is, what about technical debt? We know that in software world, teams will generate technical debt. Because sometimes the value of feedback means we might just quickly get something out the door to get that feedback, and we know we're going to come back and clean up the code or refactor the code. But if you're operating with a fixed budget and a project, where does the money come from for the technical debt to address that? It never does.
But imagine that you are working with an equipment manufacturer, for instance. How can you be spending 2 years in developing something and just trying after 2 years and deliver to the customer to get the feedback, or at least it fits to our proposal strategically. You need to split that in MVPs and learning, right? So,
and when we're trying to get that feedback as well, there's parts of the system or the solution which our end users are going to be interfacing with, interacting with, and there's going to be other parts of the development which they will never see. So, for example, if you're developing an MRI scanner, there's going to be, the user interface that the doctor or the nurse is using. There's also going to be like the bed or the kind of thing that the patient sits on. We can get early feedback on those two things, but some of the things like the lasers or the kind of the radio waves, well, we don't really need feedback on that. We need different types of feedback, like in terms of electromagnetic safety. But so you need to be quite think about, well, where does the feedback benefit me? Well, what's the customer going to interact with? And then we have different personas there. We have the medical worker. We also have the patient. So you just need to think about, okay, where's the feedback important and what bits does it not really matter to the customer because they don't see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's based on assumptions.
That's why OKRs are important.
Yeah, OKRs are important, but that doesn't take away the need for validating assumptions using MVPs. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think related to this, something that I'm often saying to clients, or indeed to people when I deliver training courses, is we actually need to start changing the language away from requirements to outcomes. So normally and traditionally, in fact, even today, everyone's like, well, what are the requirements? And we need to start thinking about, well, what's the outcome we're trying to deliver? Yeah. So once we agree on the outcome, and if we can measure that outcome, maybe using OKRs, then what do we need to do to achieve that outcome? The thing is, when we just think about requirements, sometimes you can deliver all the requirements, but you've not achieved the outcome. Yeah, and it just cognitively changes the kind of the conversation you have if you're thinking about outcomes. So for example, traditionally a customer will say, "Here's my requirements," and we just work on the requirements and deliver those requirements. And maybe the customer might not actually still get, they might not still achieve the outcome they were looking for. Instead, if we have that initial conversation about, well, okay, those are the requirements, but what's the outcome you're trying to deliver? What is it you're trying to achieve? Okay, then that makes us a lot more creative in terms of how we, try and achieve the outcome, and the OKRs which are related to that, so we can objectively measure whether we've met the outcome or not. But trying to change, decades of requirements as a language to outcomes, it takes time. Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, for commercial organizations, obviously you need to, be profitable and all the rest of it. And that's why I think fundamentally this is a much less risky approach, because we are using MVPs to validate assumptions. We're not just saying, so when I used to be a program manager or project manager, I used to do like a 40-page business case. And then let's say I was looking for 1 million euros of investment, and they look at that, okay, you've done your business case, here you go, 1 million euros. And then I'd run my project or my program, and every 3 months there'd be like a project review board. And is it going on track? Yeah, it's on track. And I remember when I was then on the PMO side, a lot of those projects or programs that we were evaluating were what we call watermelons. Yeah, watermelons as in they're green on the outside according to the RAG status, but they're red on the inside. Yeah, but the thing is, finally I deliver my project or my program, and I've spent the money now, spent the 1 million euro. Have I actually achieved the business benefits? Well, actually, very few times did people go back and quantify whether the business benefits were achieved. Sometimes the people who approved the project have already moved on. and we didn't achieve the business benefit. We've already spent the 1 million euros. Oh well. that's a really almost a dangerous way to work when you've got limited funds. What we're advocating instead is, okay, you want €1 million for your epic. How much is your MVP going to cost? Well, my MVP is going to cost €50,000. Okay, so we're going to give you, and when we say give you 50,000, actually we're just giving you capacity on the team of teams on that value stream to run that MVP. Then I go back and say, okay, here's the data from the MVP, and based on that, maybe I get more money, maybe I get more capacity on the train or not. So it's just a less risky way of working. Cool. Yep. All right, so I'm going to ask one final time, participants on the call, if you have any other questions. Okay, so should we close that there? By the way, if you have any questions about this, radtac.com, that's where I am, or on LinkedIn, feel free to just give me questions on LinkedIn. Always happy to do that. Yeah. So sorry we couldn't run a proper participatory budgeting forum, but it's, as I say, it needs a lot more people to make that worthwhile. A number of different tables of people and epics, so that's why we couldn't do that. All right, thank you very much for your time, everyone. Hope you have a good afternoon.